If you've clicked on this video and you're actually thinking, what is InCoWriMo? This stands for International Correspondence Writing Month, so it kind of mimics the idea of NaNoWriMo, so National Novel Writing Month, except it's held in February. As we've got here, our first idea is to actually write out the rules of InCoWriMo. So the general premise is that you're going to handwrite and mail or deliver one piece of correspondence for every day during the month of February. The reason they picked February is because 28 days, or 29 on a leap year, is a little bit easier than 30 or 31, especially if letter writing isn't something that you typically do. The rules that I've written out here are the ones that come from the InCoWriMo website, but you can also include things like house rules. So for instance, if you want to restrict yourself in terms of sending letters to a different person each day, or maybe sending letters to people who are in different states or different countries, kind of just as a way to personalize the challenge and really make it your own. Our next idea is that of a writing supply checklist. It is much easier to do any project when you have all of the required items ahead of time, so making a checklist or maybe a little shopping list for yourself could be pretty useful. I've also noted that you could include the number of each item just to make sure that you have enough of those things so that you don't run short on envelopes or stamps or whatever else. And you can also include specialty supplies, or things that you might want for deluxe correspondence, outside of just the regular paper, stamp, envelope, those things. You can see I've decorated the page with some stamps and different bits and pieces. All of the materials I've used are linked in the description box below. But our next idea is that of a correspondence lineup. You could do this as a checklist, I've just done it as a bullet list, but effectively, who are you sending your letters to, and who are you expecting to receive letters from? This can be helpful just to keep track of making sure that you're receiving the letters that people have sent you, and also keeping on top of, do I have enough people dedicated to each of the days of February? You can see I've listed out a bunch of different names here. I'm not actually going to be sending letters to these people or receiving them from these people, but if one of these names is yours, let me know in the comments. Flipping on over though, our next idea is that of writing prompts. I don't know about you, but if I was to write 28 letters, I would probably run out of things to say. So having some prompts to kind of, get yourself started, give you ideas of what you can actually discuss, could be quite useful. You can of course just find prompt lists online if you go to Google and search writing prompts or pen pal letter prompts, but I've just listed out some here. Of course you don't have to talk about every single one of these in every single letter, and it probably depends on who you're writing to as to whether you'd want to include this information. Another idea is to include an address book, or at least a space to write out the addresses of the people you're sending letters to. Following on with that idea of it's much easier to do a project if you have all of your supplies and materials ready ahead of time, having your addresses all in one place so that you know where to find them could be very useful. I've drawn this one up so that we have 28 little boxes, and they're kind of drawn out to represent letters. Then we've got a couple of lines to write the address for each person on. Of course, if your handwriting is a little bigger, this one isn't quite going to be suitable. You might want to spread it out over either a full spread or a couple of pages. But I put a little stamp box in the corner of each so that you could possibly tick them off as you send that letter. I am a sucker for checklists and some kind of progress tracker. So our next idea is a correspondence workflow. This one is broken down so that we have the numbers for each day of the month along the side here, and then the person you're sending a correspondence piece to is written beside that. Up the top here though, we have each of the tasks for writing your correspondence. So the ones I've included are things like the address has been acquired, you've picked your writing topic, your letter is actually written, your happy mail is picked if you want to include some bonuses in that piece of correspondence. You've assembled all the elements, they've been packaged, you've added the address, you've put the postage on, and then you've actually posted it and notified the recipient. It's also good to note whether that arrives, so hopefully people will tell you when your happy mail arrives to them. Of course, those are just ideas, so make sure you're adding tasks that are relevant for you. We've mentioned it a couple of times, but in some of your pieces of correspondence, you might want to do a little bit extra. So not just write the letter, but also include some bonus items. And that's where something like a happy mail planner could be quite useful. For this one, I've just listed some examples of what you could include as happy mail, so stickers, washi samples, scrap papers, etc. And then you can plan which of your correspondence pieces will include those items. This can just be a fun way to personalize the piece of correspondence, add a little bit extra personality outside of just the letter itself, and everybody loves bonus goodies. As you can see, I've listed out numbers 1 to 10 on this, so the idea would be there was 10 pieces of correspondence that have these bonuses. But you could style it a little bit more like this layout if you wanted to include bonuses in every single piece of correspondence. All of these layouts are just ideas, of course. The idea we have at the bottom here though is a card keeper. And this is effectively just dedicating a space in your journal, or spaces, depending on how much mail you're receiving, for holding onto or keeping those different pieces of correspondence. My favorite way typically is just to take the envelope that the thing was actually delivered in and double-sided taping that envelope into my journal. Obviously, this is just an example, so this is a little envelope that I made out of a brown paper bag. And notably, this is not my real address, so if you do want to send me any mail, please don't use this one. The nice part with these ideas is that they don't just have to be used for InCoWriMo. You could technically use them for any kind of letter writing process where you're writing a lot of letters at once, but they're just some ideas to get you started. I would love to know, are you doing InCoWriMo this year? And if so, do you have all your letter recipients organized? For more bullet journal layout idea videos like this one though, the playlist in the top right is where it's at. Or if you're still on a letter writing kick and wanted to see my letter-inspired bullet journal setup, the one at the bottom is for you. Click or tap on either of those and I'll see you over there.